Escalation Protocol, the best public event activity to ever hit Destiny in the past, present, but hopefully not the future. In Destiny's past, public event activities have always been a key point from the Court of Oryx and the Taken King, Archons Forge and Rise of Iron, and then in Warmind, Bungie introduced Escalation Protocol, the best one of them all. Escalation Protocol may have been something you're familiar with if you played Destiny 2, or something you have no clue about if you got into Destiny 2 late or just never got into it at all and are here for the content and not the game. Best kind of viewers. Escalation Protocol was brutally difficult, but very rewarding for completion. Escalation Protocol was not in the best time period of Destiny 2, but it was very much the hero Destiny needed in its arrival on May 8th of 2018. Trust me, this one was special. Dare I say, awesome? It's time for you to grab some food, get comfy, and come on a journey through time with me as we look at why Escalation Protocol was so awesome. Some footage in this video is from players around the community. Their links will be in the description of this video, as well as the music too. YouTube analytics, here they are. You see that number of subscribers versus non-subscribers? Maybe you want to hit the red button and the bell. No? Okay, fair enough. Have fun watching the video. 8 tracks displayed, soon to be merch, available with the link down below. Thank you. Destiny 1 and the King's Court. This was new to Destiny and the first real open world public event that anyone could jump into at any time. It was Destiny's first jump into the public event grand scale and organized space, introducing a new part of leveling in Destiny called the Artifact, with Court of Oryx being a window to jump through for that. The Court of Oryx had this easy to read aesthetic with different tiers to it, and with those tiers, the challenges gradually scaled up. You had tier 1s being the easiest, only at 190 light level, with a small boss to defeat and very light mechanics. Tier 2 was 240 light level and actually had 2 bosses, both with some gradually harder mechanics. Tier 3 was the hardest and recommended 300 light level from each player, with some significantly harder mechanics to grasp for the boss fights and the best rewards like legendary gear, artifacts, some fragments for the Touch of Malice quest, and more. Some of the standout bosses from the Court of Oryx were the 2 knights, one Taken, one Hive named Mengoor and, I'm just gonna say Craig, that's not his name, but I'm calling him Craig. When these guys were separated, they took no damage, so the goal was to keep them as close as possible. There was the Ogre Krughor that only had its shield broken by cursed thrall explosions. There was the 3 wizards that you had to kill fast in between or they'd keep respawning. There was Locker, the wizard who just can't make up its mind and teleports everywhere it wants to. And good old Vorloog, who's supposed to rotate shields, but died every time he spawned in. Those were your tier 1 and 2 bosses, but the tier 3 bosses were a bit more intense on the mechanics and at the time really difficult to beat unless you had a group of people running around the court, and even then you'd be at best cutting it close on release of the DLC. There was the Fanatic of Crota, who is literally just Crota's boss mechanic with the sword in a smaller environment, making it a bit more cramped but still very familiar, and makes you wonder if Oryx was still holding on to his dead son this much that he happened to let this happen in his court. Then there was Kaagor, a wizard that brought a pack of ogres, with one being a servile ogre that dropped Kaagor's shield to do damage. Finally, Balwur. I think that's how you say that. A wizard who applied a damaging field to the entire floor of the court, except the area directly underneath the platform. You were going to need to kill special acolytes to extend the safe area into the open and make Balwur vulnerable, letting you bake the boss. That was the Court of Oryx, and yeah, it eventually got old once you acquired the artifacts, ghost shells, some engrams, fragments, and levels for Eris Morn. One thing that was always hilarious with this activity was people fighting for who dunked the rune, because they would receive the most rewards depending on who dunked it. So it was like a bunch of dogs chasing one bone at the same time, except that bone was infusion and the Taken King, of course. Overall, the Court of Oryx was brand new, it was great, and I really enjoyed it. One year later, Bungie would expand upon the Court of Oryx with their own metal flair to it in the form of Archons Forge. Archons Forge was out in the brand new destination to Destiny, the Siva-infested Plaguelands brought with Rise of Iron. The Plaguelands may have been similar in aesthetic to the Cosmodrome, but places like the Archons Forge truly made this destination special and a nice stark contrast to the Cosmodrome before it. While Court of Oryx was driven off of mechanics and that aha click moment for players' brains, the Forge was driven by killing large groups of enemies at once, some with the fiery axes that Rise of Iron brought with that relic. The Forge didn't really have a bunch of different bosses. There were some powerful Shanks, some powerful Vandals, Captains, and just in general, more ad clear and time focused grinding than mechanics. What do you think though here? Do you prefer more mechanics or more ad clear and hordes from enemies? Let me know in the comments. What was great about the Forge, aside from Siva collectibles and the fact that you couldn't jump back into the Forge if you didn't have a key after death, was actually the amount of loot from the Forge. Sure, the Court of Oryx had artifacts, ghost shells, and engrams to gain levels, but the Archons Forge had full armor sets for each class to grind, and it had exclusive weapons to that activity. Saladin's Vigil, a very high impact fusion rifle which decimated enemies, especially in the Crucible, and my favorite sniper by the end of Destiny 1, but not forgotten. That's the name. We're not doing this who's on first, what's on second, but not forgotten, with this magnificent scope to add to the beauty of it. Both extremely rare drops with wide perk pools, but it was the extra aesthetic of the scope here that did it for me. All of these, plus some ghost shells, some artifacts, and just like the Court of Oryx, currencies that weren't easy to obtain, offered a grand challenge, very welcoming to the health of the overall game. Rise of Iron's leveling was a lot more forgiving than the Taken King though, and as a result, climbing that ladder made the grind for all of this loot shorter. But I want to know what you think. Which of these two activities sounds better to you? Whether you played them or not, I want to know your thoughts in the comments. Alright, that was all for Destiny 1. Now we move on to my personal favorite public event activity of all time, and one that I'm not sure could ever come back nearly as awesome. Escalation Protocol. Welcome to Warmind, Destiny 2's second expansion, and the one that, like I said in my Sleeper Simulant video, really snuck under the radar. Tucked away by Curse of Osiris's flaws and failures to deliver, and thought to be just another awful expansion before it even came out, Warmind delivered a pretty solid DLC that was unfortunately hindered by Destiny 2's problems at launch. It wasn't until the Go Fast update where people still kind of were up in the air about Destiny.
PvE, nice buffs. I really like it. PvP, people still seem kind of mad or indifferent. I'm kind of indifferent myself. It doesn't help that PvP is still as bare bones as it's ever been outside of ornaments in terms of features and rewards and whatnot.
So going into Warmind, there were some skeptics, but how would Escalation Protocol deliver? You guys saw the title of the video. You know it delivered well. Escalation Protocol might as well have been the centerpiece of the Warmind DLC, with every single exotic quest and exploration goal being around this event. There were two spots to get this one started. One up top by the Braytech Futurescape and one down low by the Glacial Drift. Unlike the one location for Court and the Forge. Escalation Protocol was started by opening these Rasputin towers called the Incursion Site, and immediately wave 1 started. Out of 7 waves! The best way I can describe Escalation Protocol at launch is by saying the Court of Oryx and Archons Forge walked so this activity could run. The inspirations were obvious from the Archons Forge for Escalation Protocol, with wave after wave of enemies being here with scaled difficulty per wave, while the influences from Court of Oryx were here by having mechanics with crystals, swords, and some bosses in the mix as you scaled up. On launch, if you only had 2 or 3 people, you might be able to, just barely, if you really cracked out, get past wave 1 or 2. You are going, and I mean going, to need a squad of 6 players to make it past wave 5. But no way were you going to beat wave 6 or 7 without a full maxed out match-made squad of 9. One thing I forgot to mention in the Court and the Forge section was Destiny's public matchmaking. It's not great. Players used to have to slowly walk into these places to find other players, or go back to orbit and try again. The same can be said for Escalation Protocol, but since it was the focus of the season, if you wanted more than 3 friends in the same instance, you were going to have to go through the trouble of getting random blueberries to help you out. Pass Litur, hope they're cooperative, you know, annoying stuff, for just a chance at level 7. Level 7 was so difficult in that first year of the game that people wanted Bungie to nerf the activity into the ground. But Bungie did not at all when it came to its ambitious and difficult We'll get there later. For now, you needed to bring everything you had into this wave shredding activity with light raid mechanics and move to different pillars throughout each place as the waves progressed, killing bosses and avoiding that fucking interceptor. Seriously, this dude was the hardest raid boss of all time in my eyes. Fun party trick, by the way. Kill this dude and run your friends over. Everyone will love you for that. Now, like I said, at launch, wave 7, with a cracked out squad of 9, and I don't mean to be that lady from Savathun's song strike.
They're harvesting guardians.
You just might, with 10 or less seconds, beat wave 7, depending on which boss it was for the week. Oh yeah, rotating bosses, just like Court of Oryx, except this time, there's 5 instead of 3. You had shriekers everywhere to fight, blasting you from a mile away. Only so many weapons can compete, and there was no Well of Radiance, no mods to fight back, no orange balls that blow up everything, just basics were in the game. You had the Crest of Xol, which was an ogre that was really like reverse Rona, where a hive stood anywhere near him, he'd gain a shield instead of being 6 feet away, giving the player tight windows of damage to hit him. The next boss, Roar of Xol, was a knight that had a reverse Crota mechanic. Use the sword relic to break the shield instead of to do damage. Then you just shoot him with regular guns for the actual damage. This one was high risk, high reward because of stomping and general adds to deal with, leaving you with the tight windows for damage. Then you had the Mask, which was an ogre immune to damage on his front, but took lots of damage on his back. So splitting your team was the best way to take him out. But once again, adds and shriekers were in your way. So tractor cannon and nova bombs were the player's best friend. Then you had the Famine. Unless you were kitted out with the best loot in the game and a weapon we'll talk about in a bit, you weren't beating this guy at release. This boss not only looked like a butthole, but was one too, regenerating health from sacrificial cursed thralls kamikazing into him. Reminiscent of the ogre from the Court of Oryx needing a cursed thrall to break its shield. Finally, the Hunger of Xol, a gigantic knight that looked exactly like the war priest from King's Fall raid, whose mechanic was he had a lot of health, but acolytes around the room could actually drop orbs and give you even more damage to fight him back. Now, those were your bosses, but Evan, what about the loot? Yep, it was insane. The loot was spread out week to week, with only some bosses dropping certain guns and others dropping all of them. But the three weapons from this event were the Ikelos shotgun, the Ikelos sniper, and the Ikelos SMG. The Ikelos shotgun might as well have been the best gun in the game at the time, with trench barrel on it for extra DPS after a melee and insane rate of fire for the at the time heavy weapon. The Ikelos sniper had box breathing, which once again was insane at the time, like busted good, and this thing having a very fast rate of fire with that perk made it even better. The Ikelos SMG was the worst of the three at first, but it caught on quickly and is still one of the most widely used weapons in Destiny 2. Wormine cells. All of these weapons were just so good, but extremely rare. We're talking 1% drop rates on these bad boys, keeping the grind alive and well. Bungie did think ahead on this one though and put it in bad luck protection. So every time you didn't get one to drop, the chances went up by 1%. A pretty dang cool system in my eyes. The only downside is once you beat it or failed at wave 7 at launch, you had to start all over from wave 1. That's kind of tough. There was also some shaders. Cool. And if you had a decrypted cache key, the final chest dropped one piece of armor for the week with one of the coolest looking armor sets in the entire game. Transmog is getting these sets done. Well, not for my Titan. The loot was just well calculated and aspirational with an insane challenge to get it. There's just nothing else you could really ask for. It was the pinnacle of public event content for Destiny, the Court, the Forge, and now the Offspring EP. Man, I just love this shit. Remember that nerf we talked about? Yep, Bungie caved in and nerfed the difficulty of Escalation Protocol, making the final wave no longer 400 power and instead 385. That, along with some other minor nerfs to the difficulty of it, were either the best news ever or the worst news ever, depending on who you asked. Bungie would go on Reddit to answer their reasoning for nerfing the event. Quote, Escalation Protocol has been live for 2 weeks now. Ever since the launch of Warmind, we've seen Guardians bravely battling hordes of Hive on Mars. The bravest among you have gone to defeat 7 levels of bosses. As always, combat leads to feedback. Today, we're responding to a popular request for the new matchmaking systems that will unite 9 players in battle. Lead designer Jacob Benton has some comments about this activity in Destiny. What were the design goals for Escalation Protocol? Jacob says, Escalation Protocol was designed to be a highly difficult endgame activity for max level 3-player fire teams. Other players in the world can contribute to make it easier, but they shouldn't be required to as long as your team is highly skilled and coordinated. We have received a lot of feedback since the original launch of Destiny 2 that players felt like reaching max power was not satisfying. There weren't enough activities that required and rewarded that level of commitment, and Escalation Protocol was designed to fill that gap. So, yeah, the Big B nerfed the protocol. It was still difficult, but just not the first 2 weeks of difficulty that the player base may have been looking for. Over time as well, the protocol would become easier, especially with Forsaken adding special weapon slots, random rolls, and just a caveat of stronger weapons to pounce this activity into the ground, making it seemingly less relevant as time went on, something players are accustomed to now. But back then, players were used to some facelifts on their activities over time. So this came as sort of a shock that it was getting rolled over this hard to a wide player base. Other public events came after it, but none of these did what EP did, providing that pinnacle feeling with great rewards at the end. And I'm not sure if Bungie can deliver another EP to the player base for a long time. The best loot and hardest challenge in a public event? Now that's ambitious and ballsy. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Bungie can do a public event to this scale again. We'll just have to see. But I am asking you another question. What do you think of EP overall? Was it a great event? Was it a bad event? Was it okay? Was it good? I want to know what you have to say in the comments. I also want to ask, can this one ever be done better in the future? Let me know in those comments. Aside from everything else, Esoteric soloing EP because of course he did, and Bungie making this special emblem for players who participated in the protocol, that was all she wrote for EP before it was sunset. And that is why Escalation Protocol was just so awesome. Just like Bungie sunset the Escalation Protocol, I am going to sunset this video. So stay tuned for bloopers, sub to the channel if you're not already subbed, check me out on Twitch where my community calls me bald. Anyways, enjoy some bloopers everyone, and until next time, I'll see you then.
Okay. What was that? What was that? What was that? What was that? That turns into an arc pillar?
All right, that was a little
Oh my god! How much just dropped in, bro? Bro! Ah! What the fuck? What the fuck just happened? Why are there this many enemies?